Right? This week's Torah portion is called Shlach, or send, because both the Torah and Haftarah sections discuss the sending out of spies. It is a very rich portion covering the 12 spies sent to Canaan, where Caleb and Joshua were the lone faithful Israelites. It then discusses Moses' intercession for faithless Israel. It discusses a futile attempt by Israel to capture Canaan without God's help, and it details laws of grain and drink offerings. However, I'm going to skip past all of that today. Numbers 15:32. Now, while the children of Israel were in the wilderness, they found a man gathering sticks on the Sabbath day. And those who found him gathering sticks brought him to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation. They put him under guard because it had not been explained what should be done to him. Now, I recall a while back, Daniel compared his messages to different kinds of food: milk, meat, and vegetables. For some, my message today will probably be more like bitter herbs. Today, I'll take a look at the severity of the Sabbath. This commentary is just going to be a small fraction of what Daniel covered in his Sabbath series, which you can watch online. I hope my commentary today encourages you to check it out. In the Torah portion, we see someone caught breaking the fourth commandment by working on the day God sanctified for rest from the very first week of creation. Genesis 2:2. And on the seventh day, God ended his work, which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, made it holy, dedicated, because in it he rested from all his work which God had created and made. We see here the Sabbath was instituted even before the fall of man. Even before sin entered the world, the seventh day was blessed and sanctified. Let's look at the Sabbath commandment given at Mount Sinai. Exodus 20, verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work. You, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. Now, just reading this, we can understand why the man was arrested. Also, if this is all that God said about the Sabbath, it makes sense that Moses and Aaron wouldn't know what to do with him. We also note that after some broke this commandment when it was given earlier, that God just rebuked them. If we go back just a few chapters, Exodus 16:27, now it happened that some of the people went out on the seventh day to gather. This is gathering manna. But they found none. And Yahweh said to Moses, how long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? See, for Yahweh has given you the Sabbath. Therefore, he gives you on the sixth day bread for 2 days. Let every man remain in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the seventh day. So the people rested on the seventh day. Now, however, if we continue in Torah, we discover the punishment God gave later after giving the 10 Commandments for working on the Sabbath. Exodus 31:12, and Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, speak also to the children of Israel, saying, surely my Sabbaths you shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am Yahweh who sanctifies you. You shall keep the Sabbath, therefore, for it is holy to you. Everyone who profanes it shall surely be put to death. For whoever does any work on it, that person shall be cut off from among his people. Work shall be done for 6 days, but the seventh is the Sabbath of rest, holy to Yahweh. Whoever does any work on the Sabbath day, he shall surely be put to death. Therefore, the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations as a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. Now notice it says in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, not over billions of years. Now that's a bit of a tangent, but just want to point that out. Okay. We'll cover that more in October. Jumping to Exodus 35. Then Moses gathered all the congregation of the children of Israel together and said to them, "These are the words which Yahweh has commanded you to do. Work shall be done for 6 days, but the seventh day shall be a holy day for you, a Sabbath of rest to Yahweh. Whoever does any work on it shall be put to death." It appears rather clear what should happen. However, as Daniel showed in his Galatians series, there were instances in the Tanakh where the Israelites didn't actually kill someone when stoning was the prescribed punishment. If you'd like to check it out, all the videos are subtitled. Just look for the stoning one. Or perhaps they thought God would extend mercy in this case, as he did in chapter 16. After all, is picking up sticks that big of a deal? Well, let's take a look at the outcome. Numbers 15:35. Then Yahweh said to Moses, "The man must surely be put to death. All the congregation shall stone him with stones outside the camp." So as Yahweh commanded Moses, all the congregation brought him outside the camp and stoned him with stones, and he died. Now I've heard several theories about this passage, like the man was going to kindle a fire with the sticks, which is forbidden on Shabbat, or that he didn't prepare the day before like he was supposed to, or that he could have asked friends for wood instead of gathering it. Now, they're all definitely possible, but it's also possible he may have had a fire going already and was just doing this because he was bored. Now, we can't read any of these ideas into the text without other support from Scripture. Now, is it really that hard to not work on Shabbat? Deuteronomy 30:11. For this commandment which I command you today is not too mysterious for you, nor is it far off. It is not in heaven that you should say, "Who will ascend into heaven for us and bring it to us, that we may hear it and do it?" Nor is it beyond the sea that you should say, "Who will go over the sea for us and bring it to us, that we may hear it and do it?" But the word is very near you, in your mouth and in your heart, that you may do it. See, I've set before you today life and good, death and evil, and that I command you today to love Yahweh your God, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commandments, his statutes, and his judgments, that you may live and multiply, and Yahweh your God will bless you in the land which you go to possess. How rebellious are we that we disobey God when he asks us to rest? Most people enjoy resting. If our boss told us to go home and rest, most of us would enthusiastically comply. Yet, when God tells us to do it, we get most Christians, even so-called Torah-observant ones, protesting, saying, "We don't have to do that anymore." How does Yeshua feel about that? Here's a passage I've quoted before, at least once, and I've only done just a handful of commentaries. Matthew 5:17. Do not think that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For assuredly I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, one jot or one tittle will by no means pass from the law till all is fulfilled. Whoever therefore breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches men so shall be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does and teaches them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Now, some have called me judgmental for being concerned when others work on Sabbaths. I was once rebuked for pointing this out in a Hebrew Roots Facebook group. But these are all passages explaining why I get concerned. We see how seriously God takes the Sabbath. God didn't have anyone stoned in Exodus 16, but we see that people continue to disobey. He had to make a statement. Now, I don't want myself or anyone else to be called least in the kingdom of heaven. And I certainly don't want any of us winding up like the man picking up sticks. James 2:10. For whoever shall keep the whole law and yet stumble in one point, he is guilty of all. For he who said, "Do not commit adultery," also said, "Do not murder." Now, if you do commit adultery, if you do not commit adultery, but you do murder, you have become a transgressor of the law. And he also said, "Do not profane the Sabbath." So if you do not commit adultery, you do not murder, but you profane the Sabbath, you have become a transgressor of the law. Imagine if all the people working on Sabbaths were instead committing adultery or committing murder. It would be pretty upsetting. We see God gave Sabbath profaning the death penalty, yet we don't feel the same way about it as these other sins because there are no people getting hurt. Unfortunately, we tend to look at it with humanist eyes. We aren't seeing the destructiveness of it in the natural, so we aren't alarmed. Our prayer to God needs to be like the song, "Break our hearts for what breaks yours." Psalm 103:17, "But the mercy of Yahweh is from everlasting to everlasting on those who fear him, and his righteousness to children's children, to such as keep his covenant, and to those who remember his commandments to do them." Now also keep in mind that the commandment said servants, not even animals, should be working on Shabbat. And Yeshua said not to teach others to break his commandments. So if you're directly causing someone else to work, that is also breaking the Sabbath. Now again, I highly recommend Daniel's Sabbath series for a much more detailed study on this subject. I just hope today I showed why it's so important. Shabbat Shalom.